Here with Greg Norton with the Northwest Georgia Football Officials Association. Greg, of course, the assigning secretary for the group, and he's been kind enough to take some time out of his schedule to be with us here today to talk about some rule changes for 2013. Normally he's wearing the black and white stripes, but today he's got the organization shirt on there, ready to go.
Absolutely.
Greg, thanks for being
You're
with us.
welcome, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the rule changes. You and I have been talking about doing a segment like this for many years now, and
Right.
it finally worked out this year, but great timing because there are a lot of rule changes this year, especially with the GHSA and also with the National Federation as well for high school sports. So let's talk about clarification of a catch, because this is certainly a big rule that a lot of people talk about, especially when an airborne player is being kind of ridden out of bounds, I guess you could say. Clarify that rule for us this year and how that's going to change.
Absolutely. As you know, in high school football, a player has to come down in bounds in order for it to be a catch. And so that rule is still in place. However, what we see a lot of times, an airborne receiver in the air, and then the defensive player actually tackling that player and carrying them out of bounds,
Right.
or carrying them out of the end zone. And so therefore, by doing that now, that will actually be considered a catch, and they would get the forward progress of wherever they were. So if they were carried from the inside the end zone back into the field of play, hopefully our officials would rule that to be a touchdown, because according by rule, that would be a touchdown.
Right,
So,
absolutely. Okay. Another thing that we talked about too was kicking and catching interference as far as punts and things like that. That rule is going to change a little bit. A lot of people feel like, hey, there's a halo rule. You hear a lot of people grumbling in the stands on Friday night when a guy gets close, but there really is no halo rule in high school football. How's that rule going to change this year?
Okay, so in high school football now, we've always had kick-catch interference. And kick-catch interference was a 15-yard penalty, and the teams had certain different options. They could actually just take an awarded fair catch at the spot wherever the player, if he caught the ball,
Right.
then they could still take the awarded fair catch as part of the penalty enforcement, or they could go back to the previous spot and have 15 yards marked off. Now they're going to have still those options, but they're also going to have the additional option of taking the penalty at the 15 yards at where the foul occurred, which would be the spot of the awarded fair catch. Sure. So that is something that we feel like is going to make a big difference in the game this year. We do not have a halo rule as long as the receiver has an opportunity to catch the ball, even if they're within proximity of as close as you and I, Dave.
Sure.
As long as the receiver should be able to maintain his concentration to be able to catch the ball, that's perfectly legal. But if he makes any type of contact, that would be kick-catch interference, and that's where this penalty enforcement would come into play.
Sure, sure. One thing that a lot of our fans always talk about is pass interference, both defensive and offensive. Some of the biggest calls you'll see in a game tend to happen on these plays right here, but the penalty yardage is going to be a little bit different in these situations this year, and also the down as well. Explain that to our viewers.
All right, yeah, so usually at the end of the game when a team's trying to catch up, or they're really, trying to put the air attack on in the red zone to try to get where they need to get to, the pass interference, whether it be offensive or defensive, seems to always come into play, and we do hear that from the fans and from coaches. They're always wanting to get that call, and certainly that's understandable. But the reality is that in the past, when you had offensive pass interference, it was a 15-yard penalty and a loss of down. So it was almost like a two-edged sword. You really got it in both manners. This year, the loss of down penalty has been removed, so therefore it will just be a 15-yard penalty from the previous spot, which would be the spot where the ball was last put in play.
Okay.
Now, the defensive pass interference, it used to be that whenever there was defensive pass interference, the offense automatically got a first down. That penalty has been removed as well, that spot of enforcement. It's still a 15-yard penalty. In the past, it was a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down, but now it's just going to be 15-yard penalty, and you'll replay the down that you had.
Whether it be high school, college, or pro, there's been a lot of initiatives to keep players safe, and that's certainly been one of the points of emphasis for officials and coaches, and it's been a hot topic around the country at any level, certainly no different at the high school level. Talk about the loss of a helmet during a play and what that player is expected to do and so forth.
Absolutely. When a runner loses his helmet, the play is automatically blown dead, and wherever the ball is at that particular time is where we're going to stop play, and that's where the play would be resumed at that particular point. So, and we saw a lot, it really became a point of emphasis last year about the helmetless players. Concussions is always a point of emphasis in football as well. People using their helmet, and they're really trying to take the helmet out of football. Now, a lot of people don't like that. A lot of the old school football coaches and players, they're thinking, well, that's just the way we were taught, that's part of football. However, the studies that have been done, even with NFL players who played for many years, now are having serious head injuries and head problems because of that. So So
Right.
basically, in high school, and I think it holds true for college, if a player's helmet comes off, they basically become what we call a dead player. They cannot participate in the play in any form or fashion whatsoever. Sure. And if they do participate, then it's called illegal participation, and it's a 15-yard penalty. And the other side of that is, even if a player's helmet accidentally comes off and he sticks it right back on, he's still dead, even though it
Right.
seems like, that's a little bit unfair.
Yeah.
He's been covered. But, and so really the emphasis from National Federation and from GHSA all the way down is to have these coaches to make sure that the helmets for the players are properly, fitted and that they're on there tightly. And parents, I would just say to this, if your son is one of those players that is out there playing football, please make sure that you instruct them to make sure their helmet's always strapped and it is fitted on there properly, because we've seen a lot of head injuries through the years. And as an official, one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is when we see a player that gets hurt. And there's, we always, look at that and think, well, is there anything that we could have done, based on the rules to have prohibited that? And so I would just want to reemphasize the importance of your players and your children wearing the proper equipment, all of their pads, and because really it's a safe game, but we need to make sure, and that's really one of the things that we're out there to do. It's not to be the bad guy, but it's to be the guy that's out there to manage the game and make sure that it is played within the ramifications of the rule, and safety is always at a very most high level for us.
Absolutely. The Northwest Georgia Football Officials Association, those guys really officiate a lot of the games that we televise right here on ETC3, and I think they do a great job, not just saying that.
We're human just like they are on Saturday and Sunday. We're gonna miss plays, and those guys, they have a lot more training and a lot more ways to be able to get plays right, but for the most part, the majority of the guys that are doing this are doing it all for the right reason, and they really care, and the integrity of the game means a great deal to them.
Absolutely. Everyone's in training, including the officials.
Absolutely.
This time of year. Greg,
Absolutely.
thank you for being with us right here.
Thank you, Dave.
And going over some of the rule changes there. We appreciate you being with us.
You're welcome, and I'd just like to say thank you to ETC, because the contribution that you've made to our area in filming these games has certainly been a value to this area. So I just want to thank ETC and their commitment to local sports, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever. It's certainly, and you do a fantastic job as well.
Thank you. I appreciate
All right,
that.
thank you.
Greg Norton from the Northwest Georgia Football Officials Association joining us right here with the little preseason officials clinic.